Vitl Farms is down around 75% in 6 months. So no dip here, this is a real crash. And I want to acknowledge that up front, because some of you, just like me, may be down big on the stock here. So in this video we are discussing 3 important questions. Why is the stock down 75%? And are these reasons deal breakers to own the stock? Is this sell-off justified or overdone? And that leads straight into the third and most important question. What does it mean for future returns? I will show you that with a quick 1 year out overview and with a 2030 earnings and stock price outlook. So let's dive in with the reasons why the stock dropped so severely. Starting off with the initial decline from September until Q4 earnings. Then the actual earnings drop, and the third part is after earnings until now. So looking at the chart, and this is important, the real weakness started well before Q4 earnings. It fell from the low 50s to around $30 in 6 months leading up to the Q4 earnings. There were 2 main reasons. The first was company specific and related to their ERP system. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. It is the software that companies use to manage inventory, supplies and financial reporting. Vitl Farms had issues with the implementation of the system, and that caused delays and inefficiencies that cost a couple of percentage points in earnings. This was not a structural problem, but it did introduce execution risk, and that puts pressure on a stock. And the second reason were increasing general worries about the job market weakening. In this period, net job growth slowed to almost zero. This was causing expectations and valuations to come down, especially for consumer brands. In this period, the stock PE went from around 40 to the low 20s. And this was in combination with the market expectation that the company would grow at 20+% year over year. But this expectation was about to be proven wrong with the Q4 earnings. Because in the earnings call, the management was clear that revenue and earnings for the coming year were not at all on the same path. And that is where the story really started to change. Let's start with the revenue. They gave a 2026 revenue guide with a 910 million midpoint. Analysts were looking for around 940 million, so it was around a 3% miss. And that guide was 21% year-over-year growth. That sounds good, but the revenue growth from the past year was 28%. So the guide was a 7% revenue growth slowdown year-over-year. So not a great start, but on the other hand, still decent growth. The problem was it got a lot worse with the margins and the earnings. This is where the real issue was, because the management indicated that they were going to spend big on advertising to improve household awareness of the brand. But at the same time, we just concluded that they guided to a 7% revenue growth slowdown. So spend more to grow less, not a good trend. On top of that, management said that 2026 was going to be an investment year into new facilities. That is excellent for growth in the long term, but big capex spend poses a problem for near-term earnings. And therefore this year was implied to be a margin pressure year. And that was immediately reflected by the 2026 adjusted EBITDA guide. That had a midpoint of 110 million, almost a 20% miss from what analysts were looking for. And even worse, it meant that these earnings were suddenly projected to go down compared to the 114 million of adjusted EBITDA in 2025. And that was the main reason for the stock to fall almost 20% in the 3 days after earnings. But even this still doesn't explain the full 75% drawdown, So even more bad news was coming. And this is where multiple negative signals start to stack up. Because just ahead of the earnings call, a surprise announcement had been made that the founder, Matt O'Hare, was stepping back from the board after 20 years. The current CEO would be taking on both CEO and executive chair roles. There's no law against that, but it does raise eyebrows when it comes to the balance of power in a company. But the most important question marks were raised about the timing, right after a guide down. Normally it is not a good sign when an influential person leaves the company in the middle of an already tumultuous period. And even though both the CEO Pedro and Matt played that down and said that it was all planned and that Matt still had a role as non-paid advisor to the company, the whole situation still added to the uncertainty. After the call, several analysts started cutting their price targets or moved their rating down to hold, mainly on the stagnation of earnings growth. And at the same time, short sellers moved in aggressively. Roughly 24% of the float is now sold short. And once short sellers take control, then price action often disconnects from fundamentals. Then came class action investigation headlines, which tend to amplify already existing fear. And finally, the macro backdrop went from doubtful around jobs to completely risk-off, with higher oil prices and increasing recession fears. The complete market went down, and Vital Farms is a direct oil and consumer-related stock. Oil because of the transport costs for chicken feed and eggs, and a weaker consumer may mean that they will trade down to regular free-range eggs. All of these reasons increase the sell-off after earnings, and together this is how you get a stock down 75%, even if the business itself hasn't collapsed. So after all of that, this is the right moment to pause and reassess. First, my view on all of it. Are any of the mentioned reasons for the drawdown a no-go for me on owning the stock? To me, all of the reasons mentioned look like shorter-term issues. Margins will recover, lawsuits and short sellers will go away, except potentially one. The declining revenue growth rate, even with increased ad spending. That could be temporary due to the current consumer weakness, but it is the one item that I'm really watching for the longer term. But to counter that, in the Q4 earnings, the management has reaffirmed to be on track to their 2030 goal of 2 billion in revenue. So if they reach the guided 910 million this year, that would imply a 22% revenue CAGR up to 2030. I'm watching if management keeps reaffirming that they are on target. And where does it leave the stock now? Well, it is below $13 with a PE of just 9. From around 40 in September to 9 now. And of course that is mostly due to the guide for a down year in adjusted EBITDA. Earnings down for a year equals a stagnating business to some. And in the shorter term that is of course correct, but the down year in earnings growth will not be permanent in my opinion. And that is also what I see in analyst estimates. I got these from MarketWatch. You can see the average estimate is indeed now for this year to be down slightly. But then for next year, earnings are expected to grow around 20%. The market is clearly doubting these numbers. When it becomes clear that 2026 earnings will indeed be around $1.4 and that the next year the company is going to grow earnings 20% again, then the PE will not stay at 9. 20 to even high 20s is arguably much more suitable for the future. And that naturally brings us to the key question for investors. What does it mean for future returns? We will start with a conservative and simple 1 year out scenario. Let's assume the analyst's $1.7 of EPS for 2027 is going to be correct. Then that would mean 20% earnings growth from this year to next year. A 15 to 20 forward PE is still low for a company growing earnings at 20%. But using that, the stock price for a year from now would already give a range of $26 to $34. That would already indicate a double up this year. So let's also look at the longer time frame, because the asymmetry just builds when we zoom out. I will do the 2030 outlook in two ways. This first scenario simply extends current analyst expectations. And the second one will be by using the management numbers. When using the analyst numbers and applying their 20% earnings growth, also for the years 2029 and 2030, then we get to $3.12 of earnings in 2030. Using a 20 to 25 PE, that leads to a stock price range of $62 to $78 by 2030. And now let's look at the second approach, using management's own long-term targets. First, I'm assuming that they will hit their $2 billion revenue target by 2030. And second, management has given 15 to 17% of adjusted EBITDA margin target. You can see their last year's margins in the table I got from their Q4 earnings report. Right now they are close to the lower end of their target range, and their net margins are close to 9%. Let's assume that their margins will drop this year, but recover back to these levels by 2030. So no assumption on margin increases, even though scale effects could argue for higher margins over time. With those assumptions, we get to 180 million of net income by 2030. You can see in the added pictures that shares outstanding have hardly gone up in the past years, and that actually they have a big buyback program in place right now. So I will assume only slight growth of shares outstanding to 50 million by 2030. That leads us to an estimate of $3.6 of EPS by 2030. So you can see that the extrapolated analyst expectations are slightly more conservative than the management targets, which is logical. And if they do meet their own targets, then with a 20 to 25 PE, the stock price can be in a range of $72 to $90. And this is with fairly restrained assumptions. That would imply around a 6x in 4.5 years. And it could even be higher if they can expand margins further. But of course, this outcome is not guaranteed, and that brings us to the risks. No long-term investment case is complete without addressing these. For the shorter term, for 2026, we assumed that margins and earnings would not drop off a cliff. Margins down around 25%, and then with revenue up 20%, that would lead to only a small drop in earnings. But what if margins are down a lot more? What if they only make about $1 of EPS this year instead of 140? Then the shorter term upside would be very limited. So Q1 earnings will be very important to see where this year's margins are headed. And on the long-term risks, I'm mainly watching two things. First, the slowing revenue growth, something I already mentioned earlier. And second, and more importantly, whether margins can actually recover to their 16% long-term target. There are several factors that could prevent that. Sustained high advertising spend to hit the revenue targets could pressure margins. Continued capex investments into new facilities is another. And what if other dairy brands also introduce pasture-raised eggs? So an increase in competition, that could also weigh on profitability. Even temporary disruptions like bird flu outbreaks can impact margins in certain years. Piecing together the risks with the long-term potential, I could have understood the sell-off to a level of around $20, but over here, below 13, it looks way overdone to me. Even if they only make $1 of EPS this year, which I don't expect, then the PE now would be equal to the stock price, so below 13. So when I balance these risks against the long-term potential, then today's valuation still looks excessively pessimistic to me. So ending on what I'm doing with my own position. I would like to add, but I can't. Simply because my portfolio doesn't have fresh cash available at the moment. Building this channel is a long-term project, and it is still some time away from generating income to put back into the portfolio. So for now, my focus is on being patient and letting this thesis play out. With the upside potential I mentioned, I'm not selling a single share here, that is for sure. As always, this was not financial advice, just my view on this company and the numbers. If you found my analysis helpful, consider subscribing and leave me a like. And as always, invest with purpose, try to stay calm even with crashing stocks in your portfolio, and focus on the long term. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.